Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one! Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Worked out by Burke. Bounces into Cody. Puts it up. Scores!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. How is it going? Another fabulous day. Dustin Schutte with me. We're going to have some fun. We'll talk some football. We've got another full lineup. Chris Denari from the Indiana Pacers, Matt Taylor from the Colts, Cal Neddenriep from the Indy Stars. We'll get some high schools action in there as well. Lots to talk about. Lots of games this week. A few buys, though, this week as well. So welcome in Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. We only have 5 Big Ten games. It's like a little bit of a reprieve for me after 14, 11, 12. So it's nice. I'm doing well here on a Thursday. How are you?
Cannot complain. I missed the Dodgers walk-off last night, though. What a game that was. I would have hated to have seen the Dodgers go home after having the season they had. But that's how it goes. But, man, that was if the playoffs are going to be like that, it's going to be another fun baseball playoffs run.
Yeah, I missed it too. I actually had the game on, and then I passed out before, I think like the 7th or 8th inning, I eventually fell asleep. So, of course, that's when something awesome happens, right, is after you fall asleep, even though you're dialed in. But, maybe we'll get some more of that throughout this MLB playoff season.
Yeah, but I have to say, it was an extraordinarily wonderful night's sleep. It rained. I had the windows open. It was awesome. I loved it. It was incredible. It was one of those spring kind of a deals, but it's in the fall, but who cares? I'll take it whenever you can get it. Those don't happen very often. And we've got a bye week. Like you mentioned, only 5 Big Ten games this week. Normally there are 7, of course. So it gives us a few less. Indiana's one of those teams on a bye. I don't know who the other 3 are.
Purdue, Minnesota. You would have put me on the spot here. Boy, I can't remember off the top of my head. Purdue, Indiana, Minnesota, Northwestern, I think.
So not the lower end of the Big Ten right now.
I think you can make the argument that the 4 teams that are on the bye are the 4 teams that need the bye the most right now.
Yeah.
Indiana's offense isn't good. Purdue's offense isn't good. Northwestern is terrible on both sides of the ball. And Minnesota needs to get healthy. So I think that all 4 teams right now, this is the ideal time for those 4 teams to have that bye.
Yep. Purdue continuing to have some issues. I thought this was going to be the year that they would cruise into a bowl game because the Big Ten West is just about as weak. It may be one notch above the ACC, but I'm just maybe not. It may be equal to the ACC, to be honest with you. It's really weak. So this is the year for them to get a bowl invitation, and then they go and lose to Minnesota at home, who the previous week had lost to Kent State. Yeah, I'm like, wow. I've said this yesterday. Indiana's fortunes and possibly Purdue's are probably going to come down to the bucket game for bowl eligibility this season.
There is a good chance that could happen. But here's the thing, Jim. This was interesting. Earlier this week, James Franklin was asked whether or not it was time to reconsider realignment of the divisions. And without saying yes, he said yes, basically. He said this is something we need to do. One side has been dominant. The East has always won the division. Right now you have, 5 ranked teams. 4 of those are from the Big Ten East. 4 undefeated teams. 3 of those are from the Big Ten East. But here's the most damning evidence of that. Right now, the Big Ten East, the combined record for teams in the Big Ten East is 28-7. The Big Ten West is 19-17.
Exactly. The argument's been said for years, and it doesn't change. How does this affect? This affects teams that are trying to get better, but have to play this gauntlet of a schedule. You've got people like Scott Frost who used to complain about their schedule. What the hell would he be like if he was in the Big Ten East? And he sees how hard that it is to develop a program. He's starting to get a little traction now. Nebraska's looking looking decent. They scored. They put 51 points on the board last week. That's a lot of points for Nebraska to score, even though it was against Northwestern. But it's taken him longer to get this thing going. And playing these teams, he didn't like it. I'm like, well, hell, try playing over there, brother. So teams like Indiana, Maryland, Rutgers that are trying to get some traction, man, it's a lot harder to do that when you have to play Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State, and crossover games against teams like Iowa. So, yeah, welcome to the real world, Mr. Frost.
Well, it's going to be interesting. I wonder if this offseason they make some sort of change or at least consider some sort of options with the way we've had so many changes in the offseason. There's going to be conference realignment. We've already had the transfer portal stuff. We've got NIL stuff. I mean, why not just make it a complete, 2 years of absolute chaos and anarchy and rotate some things around? I don't know what the answer is, but I think we have come to a point when the East has won, and I know a majority of it's been Ohio State, but when the East has won every Big Ten title, when you look at the way the divisions are aligned right now, I mean, I don't know how you divvy it up or change it around, but there's got to be a better solution because since they went away from the leaders and legends, which was dumb, and moved to the East-West, it's been all East, and there's really no other way to say it. I've been one of the resistors to division because I've always thought it kind of balances itself out. But you look at the SEC West and the SEC East, they've got the same. The West is way better than the East is on a regular basis. And same thing in the Big Ten. So it's going to be interesting to see if something does get done. But I won't, based on the leadership currently, I'm not so sure that is going to happen.
Let's hear this little bit of audio. Oh, dang it. I didn't have it turned up. Hold on. Run it back. I think a lot of people are going to listen to this, it sounds like. Oh, there's no audio, unfortunately. Oh, hold up.
Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. This is one
Oh, that was just one of the Dodgers home runs last night. I'm sorry, that wasn't a walk-off home run. All those Cardinal fans there. Just to give them a little dig, baby. Let's still give you a little dig. I thought that was the walk-off home run. That was just Taylor's home run. I think it was just the one that tied it.
It was still.
I wish I hadn't fallen asleep for that.
I know. It was still a great reaction, though, from the crowd.
Well, what would you expect?
Well, I mean, to capture that, I'm not saying – I'm just throwing it out there.
So now who the Dodgers play?
I have no idea.
So you've got Milwaukee and Atlanta.
Here, I'm going to look it up here on this handy-dandy Google device.
Oh, so they're going to play either probably Milwaukee or Atlanta.
They play San Francisco.
Oh, so they play their – now, see, that's even dumber. That's the winner of their division, who they fought with back and forth. They barely lost a division. Those are the two best teams in the National League this year by record, by far. So now you're going to make them play each other?
That's
so dumb.
Yep. 106 and 56 were the Dodgers, and 107 and 55 were the Giants. How about that?
What's that?
The Dodgers were 106 and 56. The Giants were 107 and 55.
Exactly. The two of the best teams in all of baseball, the two best teams in the National League, but you're going to make them play each other before the National League Championship Series.
Yep.
That's stupid. That is beyond stupid.
I
Wyatt says it's first time that Those teams have ever played in the playoffs, I guess. Which makes sense since they're both West Coast teams.
And let me just say,
happen.
Those those fan bases hate each other. So there's going to be some sort of fighting that happens. I almost guarantee that.
And I think both teams originated in New York.
I'm pretty sure the Brooklyn Dodgers and
I know the Brooklyn Dodgers did, but
I think
they were the New York Giants originally.
They were, well, I think so, because they always have that designation on NFL, the New York Football Giants. So I'm fairly certain that's why that was originated that way.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool, but baseball gets fun during the playoffs, kind of like the NBA. It ramps up a notch.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's do or die. That's the fall classic for a reason. I don't really watch much baseball, but I do turn it on in the postseason because to me it's way more interesting.
Well, of course, but most sports are.
Well, I mean, I would agree. I would disagree. I think college football, the regular season, is more entertaining than the postseason.
Well, college football is a 12
unique. It's a unicorn, right?
Yeah, they're playing 162 times versus 12.
That's a great point. They need to reduce that season too, by the way. 162 games.
I'm sure they would love that.
I know they would, but I'm sure that the television partners would not.
No, neither would the stadiums and all that where they make that money.
I would feel like you could charge a higher ticket price, though, because people are going to be more apt.
Why are you trying to make things more expensive for people?
I'm not. I'm just saying.
Well, you just did. You said they should shorten the season and charge.
I didn't say that they should.
Tickets.
I'm saying that they could probably, because there's a demand then. When you have 81 games, let's say you go down to 50, 55 or whatever, there's going to be higher demand to get to a game because you don't have as many during the season. I'm putting my economic knowledge to the test here.
Ross said that the Cubs won more games in October than the Cubs or the Cards. I don't even know how that's even possible, man, because October, not September, because they had that winning streak in September. I'm like, what, the Cubs, that must be that was the end of the season, wasn't it?
How many games did they play? One or two?
Like one or two.
No.
Wyatt points out that the Mets colors are a mix of the two teams' colors, blue for Brooklyn Dodgers and orange for the New York Giants.
We are getting schooled today, or at least I am.
Well, why would they mix in the Dodgers colors? Because the Dodgers moved to L.A. and are still the Dodgers. But they didn't take. Why would they just kept their own colors? Huh. I did not know that.
Well, both teams are still playing, so I mean, you could take both. I mean, either take all or none. Plus, there's a limited color wheel to use here.
But yeah, there you go. A little history for you, for those Cardinal fans who are loving it this morning. The wild card in baseball should be a 3-game series.
Yeah, it's just one game?
It's one game and it's over, baby.
I kind of like it. It's kind of like the play-in with the NBA. I mean, it's a little bit different, obviously, but the one thing that I guess you could point to is the fact that you just said the two best teams in baseball, one of the second best team in baseball, had to play a play-in game. So that's maybe not quite as fair as you'd like to see, but
no, they should go to seeding.
Yeah,
Now on top of that, you've got the two best teams in the National League playing each other prior to. So it's not. I mean, I know that TV wants this though. TV wants the two West Coast teams playing each other because they'd like to have a West Coast team and an East Coast team.
Right.
So that's why they do that crap. It's not because to make the sports better. Hey, we got to take a quick break before we get too far behind. Chris Denari, Matt Taylor, and Cal Neddenriep with us today. Back with more here on Indiana Sports Beat, brought to you by the great folks at Southern Stone Restaurant. Whether it's a celebration, just a night away from the kitchen, man, get out there. That's a place where you can catch the IU football and basketball coaches shows. Great food, great bartenders. It's a wonderful spot. If you haven't been there, it's at the corner of Patterson and Rogers. Check it out. It is tremendous. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration.
All right, update. Matt Taylor needs to be out in 10 minutes after he gets on, so try to make that happen.
Mr. 10 minutes.
I know, but hey, we got to let him do what he's got to do.
Hey, they finally
So
won.
I would say we'll be back here about 23-ish. Just make sure he's gone by 35 at the latest. And I'll send you a text when we're getting close. Now you don't have to end the segment then. You can still go a couple more minutes after he leaves.
Matt. So is Kyle after that?
Yes, Kyle's at 9:40. Excuse me.
I'm going to be on TV again next week.
You are?
For who?
Nebraska.
By the way, I heard that one of the things you retweeted yesterday, he's pronounced her name as Dustin Schutte.
Oh, does he really?
One of the Nebraska guys did.
I don't listen to it. Oh, I should probably tell him that. I'm on his show.
Dustin Schutte coming on the program.
He's probably been doing it for 6 weeks.
Hello, Matthew.
I don't think he's on.
Oh, he's not.
Yeah, so that's me. I switched my thing over. Just because he usually doesn't put a picture on.
Well, we can start a new segment called "Oh Shoot."
Everybody's playing into my name. I like it. It's my new column too. Shooting from the hip.
If you do that, then how the hell are people not going to pronounce your name like that?
Huh?
Well, then you have to expect people to pronounce your name like that.
People have been mispronouncing my name for my entire life. It really doesn't bother me.
Me too. Unbelievably. And I don't understand that.
How is that? What? Coyle? Jim Coyle?
You mean how incorrectly?
Yeah. How do they pronounce it incorrectly?
Coley. And I'm like, how is this? If it hadn't been for so many Boyles and Doyles, I'd understand. But we're bookended. I'm bookended by another name of the exact same pronunciation with just a different front end. And I never heard anybody say Bole or Boyle. Everybody knows Boyle. Doyle. Coyle.
Well, one person that doesn't have any name trouble is probably Matt Tyler of the Indianapolis Colts.
Talor. It's Talor. Is that with an O or an E at the end? I get that sometimes.
Got a tilde.
Yeah.
How's it going, Matt?
I'm hanging in there, boys. What's going on? I'm like a travel agent this year. I'm booking my own travel, getting from here, there, and everywhere. I feel like I was in Siberia last week.
Why you have to book your own travel?
Because I can't fly with the team.
You're not vaccinated?
No, they're just only X amount of people. Only X amount of people can go on the trip.
Tried to call him out there. All right,
no,
I'm
just different things. There's just all kinds of
service.
With First Federal,
I was
you can do
first in
that.
line to get my vaccine back in May. I'll tell you.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back on this Thursday. That means Matt Taylor from the Indianapolis Colts. Matthew, how are you, sir?
Good morning. What's happening?
We are here and enjoying a great day. I was talking earlier. It was an incredible night's sleep. Had the windows open and it was raining. I'm like, oh man, I wish I could sleep awake during some nights like that.
Well, if you could sleep awake, you would have you'd be a millionaire, because I don't think people would need sleep if they slept awake. But
it would be wonderful.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy.
Hey,
well,
man,
I'm glad for
the
you.
Colts
I'm glad
have
somebody
to be
slept good
flying
last
kind of
night.
high. Big win on the road last week, but more importantly, they looked really good doing it.
I think you're spot on. And the naysayers will say, yeah, you beat the Dolphins and it looks like they're headed for a long year. They're now 1-3. They're playing with a backup quarterback. And I get all of that, but I think the optics of it gives you a little bit more optimism going forward because the Colts did play, their closest thing to a 60-minute game last Sunday. They played really well on defense for, I would say, 50 minutes of the game. It got kind of squirrely there at the end when they were throwing deep balls down the field to Devontae Parker. But the offense executed very well. You had some key third down conversions. They were better inside the red zone. Still not perfect, but compared to how they played in the first 3 games, it was much more cohesive, and they played some complementary football. And, I know the schedule's been tough, and those first 3 games were really, really tough, and you played some good teams, and the Rams are looking like they might be Super Bowl contenders in the NFC. I get all of that, but what was frustrating was the Colts just didn't play well. They didn't play up to their standards in those 3 games. They let a lot of things sort of fall by the wayside in terms of execution, fundamentals. They just didn't look sharp. And I think that you are seeing some ramifications of a lot of missed time by some key players during training camp in the preseason. It's almost as if those first 3 games of the season for the Colts acted as their training camp as they worked out the kinks, as a lot of continuity just wasn't there in the month of August and the early part of September. So I think, listen, it's a really difficult test coming up on Monday night, playing on the road against the Ravens, who the last couple of years have annually been one of the best teams in the AFC. It's going to be a tough test. It's on the road, primetime, all of that. But I think the way the Colts played, the way they looked last Sunday against Miami, gives you reason for hope going forward that this team can turn the corner execution-wise and play better. And you have to start with the way Carson Wentz looked. I mean, he played arguably one of the best games of his career, not just with the Colts, but career-wise, one of his best outings last Sunday against Miami.
I thought one of the biggest differences from those first 3 losses and then this week was probably the play of the offensive line. And I think you could see what Carson Wentz can do when he has time to throw. Not only that, they were run blocking really well. They averaged over 4 yards per carry in that win over the Dolphins. So I thought that the offensive line kind of took a big step from those first couple games.
I agree. And, you're starting to see Ryan Kelly become more healthy. Again, he missed a lot of time with a hyperextended elbow in training camp. Eric Fisher is slowly but surely getting acclimated. He missed basically all of the offseason rehabbing from an Achilles injury. And so I think, those last percentage points of health for him are starting to come into play, right? I mean, get to 90, 95% week by week. So he's playing well at left tackle. Colts are still trying to figure out their best option going forward at right tackle without Braden Smith. We're still watching and waiting to see if he can come back here in week number 5. He's been dealing with a strained foot since week 1 against Seattle. So it's been kind of a rotating mixture of Julian Davenport and Matt Pryor, who they traded for from the Philadelphia Eagles. So they're trying to solidify that. But as a whole, yes, they played much better in Miami than they did the first 3 games. And, Miami's defense, they're not world beaters, and they don't have some of the talent that, the Titans or the Rams or the Seahawks have. But that being said, they went out and protected better. And as you said, they gave Carson Wentz plenty of time to make plays, and it showed with Wentz's performance. He was over 75% completion percentage, over 7 yards per attempt, a lot of deep passes, time to throw, time to scan the field, find some targets in the red zone. It just led to overall better execution.
And now the big question is, can they do that again next week? Because they go up against a pretty good challenge traveling to take on the Ravens, not only defensively, but you've got a guy that I call a snake, man. Lamar is he slithers through without taking those hits. He's just so elusive. But that's going to be quite the challenge.
It's a challenge, and it's also a unique challenge on both sides of the ball because they operate their schemes unlike any other team in the NFL, seemingly, right? I mean, on offense, you chronicled Lamar Jackson. It's almost like they run that NCAA offense, and they've tailored, everything around Jackson's skill set in order for him to be successful at doing that. They've got some playmakers on the outside. They've got Watkins. They've got Hollywood Marcus Brown. They've got Mark Andrews at tight end. I mean, all of those guys over 250 receiving yards. They're the only team in the NFL so far this season with 3 guys over 250 receiving. So they spread it out. And then defensively, they're very multiple, and they rotate a lot of bodies. They play a lot of guys. They're very aggressive. Don Martindale is their defensive coordinator, and he's always been one of the more, complex defensive gurus. Again, if you get into 3rd and long on this team and that unit, man, just expect the house to come at you, because they're going to blitz you like crazy, and they're going to try to get you off the field and play field position and kind of control the game. The Colts played this team last year, and it was right in the middle of the season, late October, and the Colts lost 24-10. But in the first half, they did a really good job. They were very disciplined on Lamar Jackson. He only had a couple of rushes for the game that kind of got out of control. But in the first 2 quarters, the Colts gave up only 55 yards of offense and actually shut the Ravens out. But in the second half, give credit to Baltimore and Jackson especially, because they made plays after halftime. I think they had 211 of offense in the 3rd and 4th quarters. They scored on 3 of their 5 drives. And Jackson was really good at throwing the football last year against the Colts in the second half. For the game, he was 19 for 23, over 80%. And that's what we're seeing him do this year. I mean, when teams load up the box and they sell out to stop the run and make sure that Jackson doesn't beat them with his legs, they make him throw the ball. And so far this year, in situations, he's proving to do that. I mean, he's over 275 passing in each of the last 2 games. He had his second career 300-yard passing game last week against the Broncos when they didn't run it very well, but Jackson made enough plays through the air, and that's what people tend to do. They tend to discount Jackson's ability to make throws, and he's done that so far this season, and that's what the Colts have to prepare for, stopping that dual threat capability that Jackson has.
Matt, you kind of alluded to the Colts needing to play their best game really on both sides of the ball. And when I look at the Ravens, I think you're dead on, because this is a team that beat Kansas City kind of in a shootout, right? 36-35, but they held the Denver Broncos to just 7 points. They beat the Lions in kind of a knockout, drag-out type of game. They beat them. Both teams scored under 20 points in that game. So this is, to me, probably – we talk about the Rams a lot, but I think in terms of both sides of the ball, I think this might be the Colts' toughest test, at least for to date.
I think you're right, and I think I would argue that it's tough in that it's so unique. And Matt Eberflus, their defensive coordinator, actually kind of talked about that this week. They are so unique in that. So when you get to game week and you start preparing for the Ravens, what you don't want to do is have to start all over and teach guys different principles that are in contrast to what they are told to do and what they're used to. 16 other weeks out of the regular season. So what they've done in the off season and a little bit in training camp, they've spent a few practice periods here and there game planning for the Ravens to make sure that, hey, when they get to game week of Baltimore, it's not starting from scratch. It's not starting from zero, that some of this stuff is a little familiar in how they have to game plan specific to stop this unique running challenge that Lamar Jackson has. And you brought up their defense, and, the first 2 games for them, they played some really good teams, or at least some really good offenses in the Raiders and the Chiefs. Both teams can put up a lot of points and fill up the scoreboard. So they were kind of susceptible in those 2 games. And then in the last 2 weeks, they've played some teams that don't have prolific offenses, to put it lightly, in Detroit and in Denver, and they've really taken advantage of those teams. I mean, if you look at the first 2 weeks of the season, I kind of wrote it down. Points wise, they were, let's see, last year in the first 2 weeks of the season, they gave up an average of 34 points per game. That was 29th in the NFL. The last 2 games, they're giving up only 12 points per game, which is 4th. And it kind of goes all the way, that theme kind of goes all the way down, up and down the statistics. I mean, if you look at the passing numbers, same kind of thing. In the first 2 games, they allowed an average of 389, which is unbelievable. That was dead last. Yeah. But in the last 2 games, that number in the passing game allowed is down to 197, which is 4th. So they figured some things out. Like I said, they've had a lot of injuries as well, more so than the Colts. And you got to give them credit, because they've been able to figure it out and navigate this season, because they're 3-1, and they've put more players on IR than any other team in the National Football League so far this season. They have 17 different players on IR, and it's not just chopped liver. I mean, it's some heavy hitters. I mean, they're starting tight end Boyle's on IR. They've got their two starting running backs. Edwards is on there. So is Dobbins out of Ohio State a couple years ago. He's on IR. They just put their starting defensive end Derek Wolfe. Their starting tackles on there. So they're a franchise that, it's next man up. They play a physical brand of football, and so they always find a way to get it done, and that's what they've been able to navigate here despite all their injuries. They're on a 3-game winning streak going into this game, and this is going to be their third primetime game of the year already out of 5.
Well, you are Mr. Primetime. Speaking of primetime, brother, and we appreciate you. I know you got to get rolling, so we don't want to hold you up from the big day. What's up next for you?
We got a lot of daily shows between now and the end of the week, getting ready for this game. All of our Colts programming airs here in Indy on flagship stations, home of the Colts, 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. So we'll have all of that on radio this week, and all of those radio shows also act as podcasts on our podcast channels. So anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can just type in Colts, and we should pull up, and away you go. You can listen to everything on demand, so to speak, and get up to speed on this game and every game for the rest of the regular season. So it's like Groundhog's Week. You guys know that. I mean, it's just, you just rinse, wash, and repeat, getting ready for the next game, and you do that until mid-January, hopefully.
Somebody should write a song like that or something.
Why don't you write the song? I think you've got artistic ability.
Man, you obviously not a country fan. It's already written.
Groundhog's Week?
No, rinse, wash, repeat.
Oh, okay.
Somebody did that, I think.
That should be your next rejoiner coming back.
Perfect. I love it. Brother, I appreciate you.
All right, guys. Be well. Talk to you next week.
Have a great one. Matt Taylor from the Indianapolis Colts joining us, taking some time out to get us updated on what's going on there. Man, they looked good last week, Dustin. They really did. Like I said, it's exactly how I described it. They look good doing what they do. Carson Wentz looked good. I promise you, as much as people have complained about him, dude is a baller because he's out there hobbling around.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like it, but I promise you, his ankles are crap right now. And I know what it's like to have one bad ankle at a time and how hard it is to get around on one of those and trying to compete. I cannot for the life of me imagine doing what he's doing on 2 ankles, other than the juice, man. Those guys, you take the juice, but it's hard to be the quarterback and you don't have wheels right now. But he looked really good last week.
Yeah, well, and I mean, that's why the offensive line play is so important, because it makes a world of difference when you're able to stand in the pocket and deliver to your receivers when they're able to get open, as opposed to getting sacked, I think like 6 or 8 times the week before. I don't remember the actual number, but it was a lot. So the offensive line has to play great in order for him to be – I mean, that goes across the board in any football at any level, but even more so for Wentz, who's dealing with those ankle injuries and isn't as mobile. But again, and you look at Jonathan Taylor, over 100 yards. The team averaged over 4 yards per carry. Those are good things. You have a little bit of momentum now going into this game against Baltimore. So this is going to be I think this is such a huge, unique test. But the one thing, I mean, Lamar Jackson's Lamar Jackson, but he does have 3 interceptions this season, so he can turn the ball over. I think the Colts
throws the ball a lot, and that dude can throw the ball.
Oh, so does Michael Penix, and a lot of interceptions there. So I'm just saying there's an opportunity. Yeah. I'm saying the Colts need to create some opportunities. That's what I'm getting. It's not
against a team like the Ravens. Hell yeah, because
that's what I'm saying. He is susceptible to making mistakes. So that's my point. If the Colts can create some turnovers, that'll help out dramatically.
That is the one thing about Lamar Jackson going back to college. He was susceptible to putting the ball on the ground and turning it over through the air. Not as much through the air as badly, but he'll put it on the ground at crucial times. He just not always great with ball protection, I think. As great a runner. He's just one of the greatest runners, though, that I've ever seen in the history of the NFL. Not by total yardage, but when you get him in not even in open field, but Barry Sanders was different. Barry Sanders could break your ankles. And I mean, you think you had Barry Sanders, and next thing you know, you had 2 broken ankles, and he's gone the other way. Comes to a complete stop, goes the other direction. Lamar Jackson doesn't stop, but he slithers like a snake that is a snake that is drenched in oil. He just always slithers through and doesn't take a lot of hits. He's just such a unique runner, man.
It's kind of like watching Michael. Like, I think Lamar's a better thrower, but it's like watching Michael Vick. If you can channel that, like, he was just so elusive. I mean, I think
and bigger, but he was bigger.
Lamar Jackson is quite a bit bigger, which makes it more impressive. And like I said, I think he's probably a better thrower. I'd have to go way back, but I mean, that's the best comparison I can come up with at this point.
Well, it's a pretty good one, but there's always been that comparison.
Yeah,
and we got to take a break, right? So let's do that before we get too deep into it. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat, brought to you by our friends from Reynolds Family Dentistry. If you're in Sellersburg or Southern Indiana, make sure you go see our friends at Reynolds Family Dentistry. Let Dr. J give you that championship smile you need and deserve. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant. Whether you're looking for
Arch Manning's out making the rounds.
Where's he going?
Well, he's making the rounds.
I know, but did you have his visit schedule up?
No, but I know that let's see, what did this one say? Oh, damn it. That brought something else up. Oh, but we do have to talk about that. Urban Meyer.
Herbs.
Do we have to?
Not very long, but
We should just refer people to the Pat McAfee video.
Is that the one? That may be the one I have pulled up right now, as a matter of fact.
The Pat McAfee? I mean, you can't air that.
Hold on. Listen.
You're going to lose all your sponsorship.
I can't hear it, so it's probably fine. Like, it's not fine to air, but it's fine that nobody else can probably hear it.
Are you playing it or am I playing that?
I'm not playing anything.
Okay.
I'm not playing anything.
Let me double check with Kyle, make sure he knows he's about to come on.
I mean, what in the... Well, I'll save that, but...
Herbs.
I went through Twitter on Saturday night and just looked at the responses. I don't care what people do with their personal life, but the responses to that were hysterical.
What's that?
The responses to that video, hilarious on Twitter.
The Pat McAfee video?
No, just Twitter in general.
To like the Urban Meyer video?
Yes, the Urban Meyer video. The response.
Anything you put up on Twitter is going to get lambasted by people just because they love to do it.
I know, but it was hilarious.
Well, it kind of was because you could tell he was half in the bag. And there's no way you don't know that cameras are going to come out. How stupid. You got to be an absolute moron.
That absolute moron or never having to answer for any accountability in your life.
Number two, dead on, because that's when we need to talk about that stuff.
All right, here we go. Save that until we have Kyle show up.
Get more to your door with AndyMooreHonda.com.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Sam's Family of Restaurants. Fresh, local, family. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. Hey, if you're up in the Indy area, make sure you hit one of Sam's restaurants, man. Big Lug Cantina, whichever is your favorite. You got the Big Lug beer line. Kyle Neddenriep joining us now. Brother, how's it going? How's your week been?
Good. Sorry, a couple minutes late here. I apologize.
Oh, you're good, man. See, we got this week what we call a bye week. if you're covering Indiana. And I'm going to do this on Saturday, not Friday, unfortunately, because they have Big Ten Media Day. But how's your week? You have a bye week this week?
I do not have a bye week. In fact, it's picking up. It's picking up a little bit with basketball. So it's the bye weeks are in the rear view, and we're full steam ahead. We're on to Cincinnati. So
yeah, I was just kidding. Really, you never have a bye week because you got 10 times as many places to cover and be. And like you just mentioned, high school basketball starting to pick up the talk, the recruiting, the visits. There's so much that goes along with that. You got a lot to keep up with, brother.
Yeah, the kind of the interesting thing this week is the sectional draw is on Sunday. So, we'll have we're doing a live show on Sunday night after the draw about 8:00. And, we'll kind of break things down, just kind of talking about what we saw. The draw, it's interesting, I think, more probably in the lower classes, the class 4A down to 1A, where, those are 8-team sectionals. And, those are situations where you could really benefit from a draw. The bigger 6A and 5A, it's only 4-team sectional fields. So you're kind of going to play, unless there's really like 3 really good teams and 1 bad one, you're not going to benefit a whole lot from the draw necessarily. But, nonetheless, there'll be, some interesting things that come out of that. And, looking forward to, it's kind of, at this point of the season, you're always kind of looking ahead to the tournament anyway, and that'll be the case on Sunday and definitely this week. There's some good games this week. Lawrence North and Center Grove could be interesting. Warren Central Carmel. It should be a really good game, competitive game. But I think everybody kind of in the back of your mind, you're kind of looking ahead to what that sectional looks like, and that kind of starts getting you prepared for what it's going to look like or later this month. And but honestly, there's a huge game next week too. Center Grove and Cathedral, 2 teams that are highly ranked in the nation, not only number 1 teams in the state. So that'll keep our interest definitely in the regular season for another week.
Yeah, one of the things we were talking about earlier was seeding in regards to Major League Baseball. And with the National League, the Dodgers had a walk-off last. They had to play. The Dodgers won 106 games, I think you said, Dustin. 106 games, but had to play in a daggone wild card game, which is ridiculous. Then now, after winning that, they have to turn around and play San Francisco, who they battled with in a division all year long, who won 107 games, versus Milwaukee and Atlanta, who both, not nearly as good. So, but there's been, we've talked about seeding for IHSA as well, because it's the same thing. We've seen a lot of times in sectionals, whether it's basketball or football, that 2 of the top teams end up playing right off the bat. And I know that's hard to do in high school. Down in the Southern Indiana, they've gotten their sectionals down to where it's basically the Hoosier Hills Conference. So that would make that easy. And if they did it that way, but then you've got the stupid conferences that have different layers of schools, 3As versus 4As, et cetera, 5A and all that. But seeding would sure make the tournament a little bit better, I think, but I don't know if it's going to ever come to fruition because of the difficulty.
Yeah, I mean, it comes up a lot, and I was watching that game last night. I didn't realize the Dodgers said I've kind of, hasn't followed baseball as closely once, we got into football season, but I didn't realize it was 107 wins to 106. That's amazing. But it should be a great series. But yeah, it's seeding something that always comes up a lot. Probably it's replaced. The class basketball conversation is probably the number 1 thing I hear about the most from people. And I thought the Football Coaches Association had an interesting idea a few years ago. It never got to the voting stage or to anything that was really up for. It was just up for discussion basically. But they had the idea of kind of taking 2 sectionals, these bigger classes, like 6A is a 32-team class now. It's relatively small. It's different than, the rest of, 5A is roughly the same. I think it's 34 teams, but, those 2 classes are different. So they had the idea of doing something different with those classes. And you're basically putting 2 sectionals together and then seeding those 8 teams together. So you'd have, if you're seeding 2 sectionals together, not to get too deep in the weeds in this, but it kind of limits you're not traveling all over the state necessarily. You're still roughly in the same region, by geography, but you see those teams 1 through 8, and then you play within those 2 sectionals are just basically a combined regional as it would be. So I really like that idea. Again, it didn't come to pass, and I think it may be too, if you're doing that, it may be too different than what 4A on down to 1A, and I think that's maybe you'd have to find something for those classes that's maybe somewhat similar. I don't know if you can seed a couple classes and not do the rest of the tournament, but you've already made those classes differently a few years ago, or probably almost 10 years ago now, by splitting into 6 classes and having a different number of schools, because those other classes have 64 teams and those only have 32. So they're already different anyway. And I think that was the point of the IFCA, was like, hey, maybe we can try this and see what it looks like. And I think you'd end up with probably a better tournament overall. I always thought, you should have your best teams playing each other at the end of it. That's how any tournament, and you're going to have upsets, obviously, and that's the fun of it. But why not give your best teams the best chance to make it to the state finals? And
does anybody do this, or any states doing this that you know of?
Doing seeding?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think every state other than ours does some sort of seeding, and that's
really,
I mean, it's gosh, I mean, I covered football in Missouri, basketball. I mean, they seeded, they definitely seeded everything. And I know most states do some sort of seeding. So
then why is it so difficult here, other than it being, if you look at the IHSA and the trouble they've had in the past of just doing common sense things sometimes? Is that just the simple issue that it's just not putting the effort into doing it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if effort's the right. I think it's partly tradition of the blind draw. My thought would be, why not just, if you're going to do, you could keep the blind draw in some way and maybe just seed the top 2 teams in each sectional and then play them off each other, so that you could at least have something for the regular season to matter a little bit more. I mean, that's my, we played the regular season, and it's fun, and it's a big deal. And, I don't know that the fan interest is hurt by not having seeding, but to me, it would make it more interesting if you're playing for something, if you're playing to be one of the top 2 teams in the sectional, especially like basketball. If you could imagine, in basketball, if you're playing for a top 2 seed, then maybe, and then you blind draw the rest of it, at least you're not playing the 1 versus 2 team in the very first round. You're playing for something. So I always kind of like that idea. Then you could keep your blind draw, you could keep your tradition of having that blind draw, and there's still intrigue to it. And you wouldn't have to say who your top 2 seeds are until the draw comes out. So there'd still be that to go off of. And,
so I think it's great, but sometimes traditions are only traditions because that was the only way to do something, and just no one has done it differently. And that's the case with the blind draw. That was the only way to do it really back then. So, there's been no way to change since then. But now I think that its time has come, just like adding the shot clock. They need to add a shot clock in high school basketball to bring it up, to modernize to the rest of everything else. Because every place else is going to have it. I know that not everyone's going to go on to play college ball, but that doesn't matter. It's how the game is played now. And it doesn't matter that it didn't used to be that way. They weren't as athletic back then. There was a lot of reasons back then. So I'm all for adding the shot clock to high school basketball, because every now and then you see that 22-2 score or something where the team does the craziness of 4-corner business. But yeah, I think Indiana needs to do both. They need to seed the tournaments and add a shot clock for basketball.
Yeah, I'm less, strong with feelings. I have mixed feelings on the shot clock. I think it will happen eventually. I think it's trending that way. We've seen a lot of states going that way, and I would kind of like it personally. In Marion County, I don't cover a lot of games that are necessitate a shot clock, so I'm kind of like, I'm not sure how much the game will change necessarily around here, but I do know, there's areas of the state where that's more. There's more, methodical types of basketball. And to be honest, I don't like people holding the ball, but I like different styles of play. I think that's part of the fun and, part of the advantage of, trying to make an upset is playing a different way. And that's maybe you're not holding the ball, but maybe you're working it around a little bit more. But I do get. I mean, on the other side of it, I had the former Cathedral coach Andy Fagan brought this up to me years ago, and I never thought of it this way, but if you can defend for 35 seconds and you're not being rewarded for that, that's a disadvantage to the defense. That should be rewarded. Being able to hold the team, and in high school, unless you're getting a steal, you're not really rewarded for playing great defense. And I get that. That's a side of it I hadn't really thought of until then, and so that's part of the reason I wouldn't mind seeing a shot clock, is you do reward that great defense for 35 seconds if you can stop them. So, but yeah, I like the shot clock when I watch like the EYBL tournaments. I really do. I think for the high level basketball, I think it should happen. And maybe it's a thing I would like to see them just try it in 4A for a year and see what it looks like. And, maybe have kind of an experimental year in 4A. Every 4A home team, if you're playing in their gym, you have a shot clock, and we'll see, maybe that's just a way to do it and see like what's the advantages and disadvantages of it, and see what happens. Most of those gyms around here anyway they're already outfitted for a shot clock. So, it wouldn't be a huge financial burden for at least the schools around here that already have shot clocks there. So you just have to get somebody to man the scoreboard and do it.
Well, especially 4A has so many kids. I'm sorry, Dustin, but so many does have probably more kids than any other class that is going to play at the next level. And a lot of those schools, virtually few of them won't have someone that goes on to play at some level, whether it's NAIA. So out of those 4A schools, rare. So I agree with you. At least in the 4A, I'd love to see a shot clock just to try it out. Dustin, I'm sorry I cut you off there.
No, I was just going to make the comment that as someone who went to Lewis Katz when Basil Malby was the head coach, I saw numerous 6-4 halftime scores and 10-8. I was always in support of the shot clock then, just because I remember teams holding the ball for 4 to 5 minutes at a time, and to me, I thought it kind of almost killed a little bit of the attendance figures, because when teams would come to town, you knew you're just going to watch teams hold the ball for 4 to 5 minutes. So I always wondered about what the interest level was for some of those games. But obviously some of those teams did have an opportunity to beat some of those really good teams because they held the ball for 4 to 5 minutes, and you limit the scoring and you limit the athleticism. But I mean, to me, I don't know what the right answer is in terms of the number of seconds or anything, 35, 45 a minute, whatever the case might be. But it's going to be an interesting conversation. I know it seems like it's been talked about now for close to 20 years.
Yeah, and I would agree. I mean, I don't go to a game like, man, I hope they hold the ball. It's going to be great. I don't think anybody would even, and would want that. It takes the entertainment value away. For people who want to come watch a basketball, that's not real. That's not. You don't feel like you're even watching basketball necessarily, but you do. I don't see it a lot in the. You do see it occasionally, like in the sectional, and that's sort of like, hey, the only way we have a chance is to try to hold the ball. And I get that. I mean, if you're coaching, why would you just run up and down if you're going to lose by 40? Right. So it's a coach's advantage, to try to, it's a thing you can use to try to win a game in the tournament, and I think that's where I don't mind seeing it, is like, man, if you can't do anything else, then you got to try this. If it's do or die, you're going to go home anyway. So, but yeah, in the regular season, I don't know if there's any place for that. That's not what basketball is about. But I think it is something we'll see here eventually. I don't know what the timeline is. I know Iowa is another state that I believe they're doing it. I don't know if it's this year or if I know they passed that, and it's definitely more states are doing it now. So I think we'll eventually see it here. I really do. I think that's something that will happen sometime in the next decade or so.
Let's see. And then this weekend, you're going to be out and about, of course. But are you going to the Lawrence North Center Grove game?
Yeah, I'll be covering that one this weekend. I covered Lawrence North last week, and Omar Cooper, man, he had the highlight of the year on a touchdown, a catch and a run up the sideline. I don't know how he didn't get shoved out of bounds, but great play, tied that game, and then Lawrence North went on to win that comeback win, and I think Omar, maybe put himself into a slight bit of Mr. Football discussion with that play, and at least he was out the first game. I think it was just one game coming off that knee injury, but he's a big time player. It'd be fun to see what they can do. I don't know if they can hang with Center Grove or not, but it'd be fun to see what he can do if they can get him the ball.
Well, Indiana could use him right now because they are hurting at wide receiver. They're not. That's one of the things that they're not getting, dynamic plays like that.
I mean, it reminded me of, I bring up David Bell a lot, but I mean, those type of plays are just like, those type of guys are hard to find. I mean, and they're so much alike. And I know Warren Central people get mad when I compare anybody to David Bell, and I don't, other than Omar Cooper. But, David had different hand-eye coordination, from a very young age. It was just, if you watch him even now, like the plays he makes in a little tiny space are just, I don't know how he can even see the ball, let alone catch it. And he makes great plays like that. Omar's a little bit different than that, but they're so similar as far as their personalities and stuff. I just, I always, it's always hard not to compare the two of them. But yeah, Omar's very dynamic, very explosive. Again, he's great hands, all those things. So I have no doubt he's going to be a difference maker at IU.
And then we've got, Charlie Spiegel, which I know I got to get you out of here, but the running back room at Indiana, really thin now with Tim Baldwin Jr. hitting the transfer portal. People like Charlie Spiegel, a walk-on who we talked about before that you've covered it immensely, may be seeing the field.
Yeah, that'd be great for him. To go, he had opportunities to go elsewhere and decided to go to IU and knew it would be, tough to, get on the field, especially at that position at that level. But that'd be awesome. I mean, he's obviously more of a straight ahead guy and, but so strong and powerful. It'd be fun to see him get an opportunity to do that.
Look forward to it, man. Thank you so much, Kyle. I appreciate you, brother. I hope you have a, non-exciting weekends, I guess I'll say.
Well, and thanks for the gift cards. Very nice of you to send those.
Oh, absolutely, brother. We appreciate you. Make sure you get out to Psalms. Kyle, if you get out there, you might see Kyle out there having a meal. But have you been to any of those restaurants before?
I have. It's been a while though, but now I'm going to be frequently visiting them for at least till the gift cards run out.
Is there one closer to you?
Mostly in the north side, but we get up there. We're up there for our kids' sports events a lot, so we'll mix them in here in the next couple weeks.
Perfect. Make sure you all do the same. Stop by any Psalms location in the Indianapolis area or the Big Lug Cantina. Brother, thank you very much. We appreciate you.
All right, thanks, Jim. Thanks, Dustin.
Have a great weekend. Hey, we got more Indiana Sports Beat coming up. Chris Denari. Let's see if he's leading the Tour de France for the third consecutive week, as I see Dustin is not.
Nope.
So that means he's fallen back. Chris has led it for 2 weeks running now. He's been wearing a yellow shirt. We'll see if he continues with that. Hey, we're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming up to you right after this, brought to you by Psalms Family of Restaurants.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
If you're in the market for
Hello, Mr. Oh, he's not in. Good. Hello, Mr. Denari.
How are you doing?
Well, both you. I guarantee I know Dustin's going to go get his leader's jersey now because you're not wearing yellow.
It's Tour de France, yeah.
I didn't know if you'd be here or down at Media Day. Or
I'll be there tomorrow. I didn't want to go for 2 days again. I did that for football, and I'm like, man.
Is IU tomorrow?
Yeah, IU and Purdue are tomorrow, so that helps.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
And then they have the girls there this year as well.
Yeah, where will you do your show?
I've got to pull the email back up where they're putting the radio people. Oh, it's in the I think it's probably that back end where you have that little restaurant kind of a place, like off the court.
Oh, okay, yeah, and it's all different when you go in there. It's really neat what they've done.
I cannot wait to see it, man.
Yeah,
are you going down?
No, I'm going down to practice right now. I mean, going to the other building, practice building, but we got a tour on Monday. The club's behind the lower level. I mean, it's really neat. The seats. Now it looks outside, it's chaotic outside, and the entry pavilion's sort of chaotic, but when it's done, it's going to be awesome.
I always like to get buy a cheap ticket and then go to, I can't remember the name of the restaurant, but the one that's at the club level there. And watch
Varsity Club.
Yes.
Well, it's gone.
Oh.
I mean, there's still something up there, but it's a little bit different.
Okay.
But what they did in some areas, like if you're a courtside person, if you have those premium tickets, it's now all inclusive. So you have a spot where you can go where it's all the food, everything. It's sort of like when you go to baseball's done that at Busch Stadium in St. Louis, those seats right behind home plate. I've sat there before. I mean, you just walk through this tunnel and you go get food and you go back out to your seat.
Nice.
Where's the courtside club, Chris?
It's just right off the floor. It's now the Care Source Courtside Club, and that is for only courtside people now. It used to be open more to the public, but they now have 2 clubs underneath the lower level.
Hey, here we go. We got 5 seconds. Sorry, guys.
Yep.
This segment is brought to you by Sam's Family of Restaurants. Fresh, local, family. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you on this Thursday. Chris Denari from the Indiana Pacers joining us now, along with Dustin Schutte. Chris, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. The break, we were talking about the revamping of the new interior of the Gamebridge Fieldhouse. New name, new look. Yeah. It was already one of the finest basketball facilities in the country, but there's probably now no question that this is the best facility to play a basketball game in and to go do things in.
Yeah, they have definitely taken it up a notch. When it opened in 1999, it was state of the art, and it has continued to stay that way. But they've made the improvements. It was billed 2 years ago as the Field House of the Future. Now the Gamebridge Field House of the Future. This is year 2 that they are coming up on completing a lot of things. But you'll notice downtown when you're outside, a lot of the exterior stuff that will be done won't be ready until October of 2022. But the lower level and the club level now have all brand new seats, all gray, cushioned, comfortable. The balcony still has the older green seats, but a lot of changes have been made. There are fewer rows in the lower level, by just a few. But they've done a fantastic job. We had a chance to tour the facility on Monday. We had a Pacer Sports and Entertainment staff meeting. And, it's just really neat to walk through the building. It's you were so used to where certain things were that you now have to program yourself a little bit differently.
I remember last year, Chris, when you made the switch to Bally Sports, you had that big sign that you put in front of your broadcast so you could remember. Is that what you're going to have to do now with the renaming of the Fieldhouse for the first couple games?
Yeah, I'll make sure that Gamebridge is front and center on my score sheet. I've been pretty good on it right now, but when you're not thinking, right, banker's life wants to roll off your tongue. But I think as we go forward, it gets easier and easier to say, just like it is with Bally Sports Indiana. I'm sure. Just like the folks down at IU, I mean, it's always been Assembly Hall, but it's now Simon Scott Assembly Hall. You just have to attach, those names onto what you're talking about.
But it's a hell of a lot easier to spell Gainbridge than it is to spell Simon Scott.
It is something, though, that I make sure on my sheet I've got enough space that I'll continue to have Bally Sports Indiana and Gamebridge Fieldhouse.
Yeah. For whatever reason, I said this the other day to somebody, and because it usually does, it takes forever to get names of stadiums out of my head. because I can still think of places like Candlestick Park and the Hoosier Dome, not the RCA Dome, but the Hoosier Dome.
Right.
And then it was the RCA Dome, and it got another name before it went out, didn't it?
I don't know.
No.
Okay, I can't remember. But anyway, but for whatever reason, this one is just easily transferring. I have not made the mistake once yet of not instantly thinking Gainbridge. I don't know why, but for some reason this time this name switch has just been easy. Even though that previous name, which I don't even want to say anymore to get it into my head, it flowed so easily. This one not quite so much, but it's just easy to remember. Gainbridge Fieldhouse.
Well, the one thing is, it has been great when you talk to the people that worked on this deal. They talked about it a couple of years ago, and they just couldn't quite come to an agreement. And as Gainbridge has grown, they're the presenting partner of the Indianapolis 500. They're on Colton Herta's car on the IndyCar series. They have made a big impression throughout the state, and they want to take that nationally, regionally, and even internationally. And what better way than to partner with an NBA franchise and put that name on a building? But it is very clear that both entities, both the Pacers and Gainbridge, want it to be more about just having a name on a building. It's really about a partnership. And I think that's what's the best part, guys, is it's an Indiana company that stepped forward to do this. And I just think that's a really good deal.
Yeah. Tuesday night, the Pacers got their first preseason action going, and Chris Duarte, the guy we've talked about quite a bit, had a good game, led the team with 15 points. We saw Isaiah Jackson a lot. What were your kind of impressions from some of the newcomers to the Pacers roster in that first game? Obviously, it's not the end-all, be-all. It's game one of the preseason. You're playing a lot of guys. You're swapping different rotations. But what were your kind of first impressions of this Pacers team, and specifically the young guys?
Well, yeah, I didn't think they shot the ball very well. They didn't shoot it well from three-point range. I think Rick Carlisle was pretty pleased with the type of shots that he got. A lot of them just didn't go in. They did go in for Chris Duarte. He showed why so many people are so high on him. And I thought he did a really good job. I think he and Isaiah Jackson can be impact players for this franchise. Duarte may be a little bit earlier than Jackson, though. I'll tell you what, Isaiah Jackson has shown a lot of things, and the fact that the Pacers have really, Rick Carlisle has put him with the second unit. I think those two guys can really benefit playing with a guy like TJ McConnell. You saw McConnell set Isaiah Jackson up for a dunk down the lane, and Duarte was the recipient of a couple of really good passes from McConnell to hit shots. So I was very pleased with those guys. It's always hard to judge game one. I think the Pacers only have a little bit of the offense that they want to put in. They'll continue to do that over the course of the next 2 weeks. Remember, after tomorrow night's game in Cleveland, second preseason game, they don't play again in the preseason until Wednesday. So that gives you 2-3 practice days to continue to do more. And then you have the final preseason game at home a week from tomorrow. And then you don't open until Wednesday in Charlotte on the 20th. So you still have a lot of time, especially for a new head coach and a new staff, to put in a lot of things that you want to do. Clearly, I know they weren't pleased with their defense. That's still a work in progress. And that's something that Miles Turner talked about in his post-game press conferences. He didn't feel like they came out the way they needed to play defense. There's got to be a mindset. And that's something that Rick Carlisle is trying to change from what we saw last year.
And
how's not having Karis LeVert at the beginning of the year? That's the guy that you want the spark from. And when you don't have that spark starter, now you've got to change how that's going to be. And so when he does come back, though, then you got to make that alteration back. Does that help, hurt, making someone else the guy right now?
Well, I think they've got two guys that you can plug into the starting lineup in Jeremy Lamb and Justin Holiday. But I'll be honest, I think, those guys are better in fewer minutes. Justin's a really good player, and I think a huge asset off the bench. If you look at one of the issues that happened to the Pacers last year because of the injury situation, guys like Justin Holiday and Doug McDermott, who's now in San Antonio, they had to play a lot more than they probably needed to play. They still had very good years, but again, that's where your depth gets challenged because of those injuries. So I think, hopefully LeVert will be back here before the start of the regular season. The tea leaves that I'm reading is that it appears that back injury, not quite as serious as we thought, but we'll just have to wait and see. But if he's able to move back into the starting lineup, then you take one of those veterans in Holiday or Lamb and you put them in the second unit with McConnell, with Duarte, with Torrey Craig, with Isaiah Jackson, and it makes your team much stronger.
Chris, you mentioned that Miles Turner talked about not wanting to or needing to come out with more energy or come out with a different mindset defensively. But I wonder, for some of these guys, I take that away as a positive comment in your first preseason game. I mean, these are guys who have played in numerous important regular season and playoff games. So to want to kind of set the tone early in the preseason, I mean, to me, that's an indication that Rick Carlisle's message is getting across. Do you get that same feeling when you have that kind of comment after a first preseason game?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's, one of the things that they've worked on defensively, at least in situations, is probably 70% of the time they've worked on defense. And I think that's why Miles said he was most disappointed with the way they came out. I think the other thing that I've seen, guys, just watching preseason games the last week is, these environments in these arenas at times don't feel like preseason games. I watched a game in Boston the other day, and they had a tremendous crowd. And the feel at the end of the game almost was like it was a regular season game. And it was a game where Romeo Langford hit the game-winning three-point shot. And I think a lot of that is because fans have not been back, right? You had very limited fans in situations last year. So this is the first time that you've had the full impact of a crowd. And so the Pacers on Tuesday night not only were playing a very talented Knicks team, but they were going against a crowd in Madison Square Garden that sort of treated it like a regular season game. And I think Miles Turner said, we probably didn't come out with enough energy for a preseason game because of what we were facing. So I think that's a mindset that a little bit is changing here in the preseason. These preseason games have more of a feel like a regular season than they do a preseason.
Well, I'm looking forward to it getting started, man. I know you are. Matt Taylor was on with us earlier, and he was talking about not complaining, but saying, I feel like a travel agent because I'm having to make all my own travel arrangements because they couldn't travel with the team because they simply didn't have room right now. So he's having to make his own travel arrangements. I know you guys are looking forward to getting back on the road, and you said you're probably going to start from the studio at the beginning of the season, and then hopefully get out as the season goes along. It's got to be, I guess, good news or positive that the Colts are doing that they're sending their guys out.
Yeah, I think when I talked to Matt, I think they are traveling. I think there are going to be some games they're going to do remote just because of as you said, he's having to book commercial flights. That's the one thing that we probably wouldn't want to do in the NBA. If you think about it, at least in the NFL, it's once a week, right? You book a commercial flight, you leave on a Saturday morning, you come back on a Monday. I would think about those 5 and 6 game West Coast road trips where you're playing a Thursday night in Portland and a Friday night in Phoenix. I'm not sure I want any part of a commercial air schedule, but we will start the year, and I think it's half the teams are starting the year where we will do road games remote. We have a really good setup in our studio, so that makes it a lot easier. But I think the thought process is when the calendar turns to 2022 or at some point, we will be back on the road. And the good news is our team has said we are more than welcome to be on the charter. So the good news is, guys, I'm dressed. I'm ready to go to practice down at the Ascension St. Vincent Center. Our home court setup is back on the floor right next to the Pacers bench. So I feel like things are a lot more regular. I've got access to the team. I've got access to the players. And if we've got to do the first 15 or 20 road games virtually, if you will, from the studio, that's fine. We'll make sure when we are traveling, we're ready to go.
Well, if you get a chance, pop down to Big Ten basketball media days tomorrow. Otherwise, we'll hopefully see you soon at a game near you. Make sure you give Chris a follow and follow the Pacers on the Bally Sports Network.
Yep.
You have to find out how to get that if you're on different. Who has it now? Who doesn't have it?
Everybody on
doesn't
cable
have it yet.
Yeah, everybody on cable has it, other than Dish. I mean, DirecTV, AT&T, Uverse, Xfinity, all the cable distributors in Indiana have Bally Sports Indiana. Where we get into trouble right now is with YouTube, Hulu, and Sling. Now there is it's now called Direct TV streaming. It's the old AT&T streaming. They do stream it, so you can get a streaming package through AT&T. It's called Direct TV Stream. They do have Bally Sports Indiana. So
that's a total different network, not just for the sports. Is it competing with YouTube or Hulu?
Yeah. It's a streaming service that AT&T or DirecTV has now. It's the old AT&T streaming service. It's now called DirecTV.
I won't reveal how I'm getting that network, but
I won't either. But thank you so much, Chris. I look forward to it, brother. Enjoy yourself. Right. Go have a great meal at Sam's.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks for it.
You bet. Chris Denari, the voice of the Indiana Pacers, joining us here, brought to you by the great folks at Sam's Restaurants. Make sure you head out to one of the great locations, whether it's in Fishers, Sam's Restaurant there, Sam's Place in Broad Ripple, or Sam's Ale House Monon on 86th Street, west of Keystone. Great beer, great food, everything you need there. And here at the clubhouse at the Golf Club at Eagle Point as well. I forgot to ask him that question, Pete. My bad. I put it up there to ask him that, and then went right off and didn't ask. Hey, we've got plenty more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Lots of games going on this weekend. We'll talk about them when we come back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, brought to you by the great folks at Andy Moore Honda. If you're looking for a great deal, Andy Moore's got it right now. They've got pilots and passports at zero down, zero APR, and more importantly, they're also raising money for breast cancer through the American Cancer Society. I don't know if you have that link, John, but if you go there and if you buy a car from Andy Moore, we'll make sure you get tickets to an IU basketball game. So there's that. All kinds of reasons to go out there. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurants.
Whether it's a celebration or
sorry, I forgot to grab that link. I know you sent that to me yesterday. I'll make sure that's up tomorrow.
Well, we can talk about Terrell Pryor when we get back.
What's he doing?
He got arrested. What did he get arrested for?
I'm not telling you until we get back.
Okay. We have it up on our website, but I didn't work yesterday and I didn't read it.
How many freaking McCaffreys are there?
Max, Christian, Luke, and Dylan. I think there's. I thought there was one more. I think there's 5, but maybe there's only 4.
One of them's a coach at Colorado or something.
Northern Colorado.
Northern Colorado.
Why is my internet not working?
He threw a piece of his clipboard into the stands. No big deal.
I saw that.
I don't know that he really threw it into the stand. Well, he may. Who knows? Who cares? You know what? I think if you're a heckler, you deserve to get hit with a clipboard. I'm just saying. Buying a ticket does not give you the right to say things that you couldn't say out on the street.
Right. I agree with you. So what was the question about Edmund Sumner?
Who's Edmund Sumner?
It was the Pete Clausen question.
What?
That's right here.
What was the trade to the Nets? Sumner in the second round pick. It was for the rights to Juan Pablo Valle.
There you go.
I think that's how you pronounce his name. I don't know how you pronounce the last name. Vaulet.
I think you mean saying it's going to keep him up all night.
Yeah.
Just said that Mike Woodson is another coach that's going to keep him up all night.
I should have done 2 days up there, I guess, but I just didn't want to do it.
We'll see.
Kevin Brockway's up there right now.
Well,
Have him call in.
it's easier when you're just a writer going and sitting on your butt. Not that you're not being a writer is easy. I'm not saying that. But to go cover that is a lot easier for a writer than it is for me. Because I have to go up there and
Here we
set.
go.
This segment is brought to you by AAA Insurance. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment brought to you by our good friends at AAA Insurance in Southwest Indiana. Whether it's for home, auto, life, renter's insurance, we all need it. Get someone insurance from someone who cares. AAA Insurance in Southern Indiana, if you're in the Evansville area, Southwest Indiana, Southern Illinois. 812-477-9966. Reach out to the guys. They'll get you taken care of. Lots of football talk to have that we're going to engage in. Jack Tuttle taking the reins for Indiana. So there's the storyline, but he gets great timing. He gets the bye week to prepare. And so that is going to be good for him because it's going to be it has to be a slightly different game plan, you would hope and imagine, for Indiana going forward. Let's see. I lost my page where I was.
Well, let me chime in here really quick while you look for your page. Is that it needs to be a different game plan no matter who the starting quarterback is.
That's what I was saying. Hopefully,
yeah. I mean, whether it's Jack Tuttle or if Michael Penix comes back, what they're doing right now is not working. So whatever the game plan is, they have to shift it around. And I know Tuttle's probably going to be the guy in the next 2 weeks, and we'll see what the prognosis is for Michael Penix. But they cannot keep going like they're going, or they're going to finish. Mitchell Page told this to John and I a few days ago on the podcast. They'll finish 2-10.
Well, I don't disagree because if you don't score points, you can't win games.
Right.
And as good as this defense has been, the offense has been the opposite.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be negative. I try to always, speak the truth, but trying to also learn to make sure you always give it time to met itself out. But I'm not in agreement with how they approached this season. I think that they just decided Michael Penix was going to be the guy before he was clear to even play. So that was a decision that was made. And I wonder about the development of Jack Tuttle. He could have been developed a lot better and been even more prepared, but is what it is. They are where they are. But the biggest issue has been the offensive line. And I've talked about this with other people. I don't understand how an offensive line of veterans can come back and be worse. And they are. They've added a piece, but yet they're still not as good as they were. Not that they were great last year, but it looks worse this season.
It looks really bad. And I mean, I think that scheming has a lot to do with that. I think that development has a lot to do. I mean, there is no one right or wrong answer to this. It's a lot of problems, and they're not as deep as we thought. They don't look good. They still can't run the ball, even though I actually think that the running games looked a little bit better as the season has progressed, but it's still not great. They're still 13th in the Big Ten. I knew that they were in trouble when they rushed for 3.5 yards per carry against Idaho. That's not good. You can't. Indiana hasn't scored a touchdown in Big Ten play yet. They're the only team that hasn't been able to do that. They squandered opportunities in the red zone against Cincinnati. I mean, this is just stacking one thing on top of the other. And as we talked about in the opener, you play in the toughest division, in my opinion, in college football right now, because you've got Michigan, Michigan State, and Penn State all undefeated. Ohio State looks like it's hitting its stride right now. Rutgers is dramatically improved. Maryland's offense looks a lot better, even though they didn't look great against Iowa. I mean, they're coming into this season, I think we would have said Indiana's got guaranteed wins over Maryland, Rutgers. You could have probably tossed Minnesota into the conversation at one point, but they look like they're getting better. I mean, I don't think there's a guaranteed win on Indiana's schedule the rest of the way. They still have to play Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Rutgers, and Maryland. They still have to play Purdue and Minnesota. So where are you going to get the wins? You have to do something offensively. And the thing to me, Jim, is the defenses in the Big Ten across the board, maybe throw Illinois out the picture, the defenses in this league, especially the teams on Indiana's schedule, are a lot better than they were a season ago. A lot better.
That includes Purdue. Maybe not Minnesota is the only one.
Minnesota's defense is really good. They shut out Colorado. They held Purdue to 13 points.
They lost to
even though they lost,
it was Kent State. It was Bowling Green. They lost to Bowling Green though.
But they held them to 14 points. It was because the offense couldn't move. They have the same trouble as Indiana does. They can't do anything offensively, but defensively they're playing really well. I mean, you throw away that 45-point loss or the 14-point loss, 45-31 game to Ohio State, and I think that their defense is giving up somewhere around like 10 points a game or something ridiculous like that. So that's what I'm saying. The defenses that Indiana is going to face are pretty good. So when you've had trouble, and I know that Penn State and Iowa are probably the two of the best three defenses in the Big Ten right now, but it doesn't get much easier.
No, it doesn't get easier. Well, it gets easier if you want to compare it to the first three out of the first 5 games, because what team in history has played in their first 5 weeks 3 teams that are in the top 5? They weren't all in the top 5 when they played, but it doesn't matter to me. That means the top 5 teams that they're in there now. Right. So Indiana has played 3 top 5 teams in the first 5 weeks, and that does not erase their offensive ineptitude. But it tells you, had they had some semblance of offense, they beat Cincinnati.
Yeah.
They just don't lose that game. They still lose to Iowa, I think. But it may have – who knows how it could have changed that game. Penn State. Penn State didn't score a ton of points.
No.
I mean,
they
wore them down eventually. They wore the defense down eventually, but they did that because the offense was not on the damn field. The defense was on the field all the time.
I think that Indiana's defense played its best game of the season against Penn State, and holding them to 24 points. That's I don't want to say that's good enough to win, but that should have been good enough to threaten. And at no point did you think Indiana was going to win that. I mean, the defense deserves all kinds of credit, because you look at the scoreboard, and I know you give up 24 points, but I mean, the offense could not produce anything, could not move the ball in any capacity. So to me, this defense is playing lights out. But the thing that concerns me about this is not just from a game standpoint. This is not just from 60 minutes each week. This is also, if the defense is going to be on the field and have to exert that much energy every single game, they're going to get worn down by games 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. I mean, it's just not sustainable. So you've got to figure out a way. If you're not scoring points, you at least have to move the chains. You've got to move the chains in order to keep the defense well rested. And maybe you don't have the offense to score 30 points per game. I don't think they do. But they have to play like Northwestern. I don't know how to sum it. I don't know how to look at what Northwestern did. They dinked and dunked. They very rarely score 35 points, but they're able to beat teams because they are able to stay on the field, ball control, pick up chunk yardage, keep the chains moving, and that gives their defense at least some time to rest. Indiana's defense is still probably winded from last week, from the first 5 weeks.
I put out a tweet the other day. A lot of the data was mainly from Pro Football Focus, I think is where it came from, but it was the defensive stop rates up to this point of the season. And at number 1 is Georgia. No surprise there. Right. Number 2, Iowa. 85%. Well, Georgia's 93% of the time.
They're
Good
allowing
luck.
like 3 points per game. Nuts.
0.26 points per drive.
That's insane.
Iowa, 85.7% stop rate. 0.83 points per game, but that's a huge jump between points allowed between those two clubs.
Yeah.
Number 3, South Alabama. Do you know who that head coach is?
I do. Kane Womack.
Used to work at Indiana, defensive coordinator. So not that Indiana's hurting on defense. Indiana has done a good job, but I think that's partly and mainly because Tom Allen is a defensive coach.
Yep.
He brought in a schooled and veteran defensive guy. He's not an offensive coach. I'll get on the offensive side in a minute. Number 4, Cincinnati. I don't see their defense as being that good. They haven't played really up until Indiana should have beat them. Now, the Notre Dame game, they outright won that game.
Yeah.
And I don't get that because Indiana should have beaten them.
Well, Notre Dame's not – I mean, I can't take away what Cincinnati's done because they beat Indiana, they beat Notre Dame. But
they're getting lucky with getting the right teams at the right time.
Yeah, but all you can do is schedule them.
I know. I'm not saying that, but they're not as good as people think they are. Cincinnati's not. I don't think.
Well,
if Indiana should have beat you, you can't be that damn good.
Well, I don't disagree with that, but I think if they go undefeated, I think they're going to be in the playoff based on
that's going to be tight. That's still going to be tight because you're going to have 2 teams from the SEC. You're going to have a team from the Big Ten this year. There's no question. And Oklahoma.
Look at the Pac-12.
I
mean, I don't think Oklahoma's going to go undefeated. I don't know. The ACC doesn't have – Wake Forest is their best candidate right now. The Pac-12 – I mean, I guess if Oregon wins out, you can make that claim that they deserve in because they have the non-conference win to Ohio State. But neither one – I don't think the Pac-12 has an undefeated team left.
Let's see. Number 5 is Texas A&M out of the SEC, which that's a big thing, being that's Texas A&M. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Number 6 is Clemson. I guess that's because they're not playing anyone. They play in the ACC. How about San Diego State at number 7? Here's one for you. Number 8 is Nebraska.
Yeah, their defense is really good.
Number 9 is North Carolina State. Number 10 is Penn State. You know where Indiana is?
In defensive stop rate, I would still think they're in the top 25.
They are 12th out of 14 Big Ten teams, and they are 75th in the country.
Are you kidding me?
I am not kidding you.
Okay. Interesting.
They are in front of only Northwestern and Illinois.
I was going to say Illinois, yeah. Huh.
That shocked me as well. But that shows how much this defense is being stressed by the offense because I've seen the games. I see how well the defense is actually playing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they're just too much is being asked of them. They're on the field too many times, too long. So,
yeah, and here's the other interesting thing. You talked about Kane Womack in South Alabama. How about what's happening out in Fresno, California?
Well, that's what I was going to. Offensively, you got Kalen DeBoer, who the offensive coordinator who left, went to Fresno State, and now Fresno State is ranked in the top 20. They lost to Hawaii last week. It was kind of, I think that was an anomaly. They had 6 freaking turnovers, man. And they still almost won the game. The 6th turnover comes at the very end when they're driving. They had a beautiful drive that went from end to end as the game was closing out, and tip ball gets picked off and they end up losing. But their only other loss was a close one to Oregon. They upset UCLA. They're ranked in the top 20. They're playing really, really well, and they're going to continue to play well. But that kind of goes back to Tom Allen's a defensive coach. I don't ever think that Indiana's defense is going to have problems because he's going to be able to be on that. And he's said so many times he needs an offensive head coach. Well, he didn't hire an offensive head coach this time, and I'm not meaning to be negative towards Nick Sheridan. He just, to me, did not have the experience to be a Big Ten. Not only that, I've said this numerous times, the position was red hot. Indiana was red hot. Could have hired anybody you wanted and taken that position maybe another notch up. And it did not go up. It went laterally and maybe possibly down. Nick spent a lot of time under Mike DeBoard. And I think that when you spend those many years with someone, that philosophy.
I was going to say something similar. I think that there's some tendencies there that are not Kalen DeBoer tendencies, and that's a problem. The other thing is I go back to this, and I don't know whether or not there was a conversation. I have no idea whether the phone rang or not. But to me, 2 years ago when Joe Moorhead was fired, why did you not, with the increased salary pool for assistant coaches, why would you not throw the kitchen sink at him and try to get him to come to Bloomington? Because, my God, can you imagine? Look at what he's doing at Oregon. I mean, look at what he did at Penn State. I know he was not successful in Mississippi. I think that was more of a round peg in a square hole type of situation with him. He's going to be a head coach in the future. But I thought that Indiana, him coming back to the Big Ten would have been a real possibility. And again, maybe that phone call was made. Maybe there were conversations. I have no idea. But I would have made a significant offer to him because I think Indiana's offense, with the way the defense is playing, if he would be the offensive coordinator, I legitimately think that Indiana would be, maybe they're not up to Penn State's level, but I think they're probably 4-2 or maybe even 5-1 at this point instead of sitting at 2-3. At least feel more comfortable.
I promise you that phone call never happened.
Okay.
But and then that leads to my question I've also asked, and we got to take a break here, but is Tom Allen, what he has done, I don't think anyone else could do. I really don't. What he did, where he brought Indiana, how he got him there. But it's also been a nemesis for him, loyalty.
Yep.
Loyalty to certain coaches has been a nemesis to him twice now. And it's on the offensive side to where he does not excel. And so that tells me that if that's a side of the ball that you really not familiar with, there's not, that you would go over the top to make sure that, I got to make sure I got somebody in there that's up there.
I
wonder, that didn't happen.
I wonder how much his opportunity at Indiana, Fred Glass giving him the opportunity, trusting him, influences his decision to give one of his assistants an opportunity. I don't know if that's the case or not.
He's big on fits, and and I get it because it's worked a lot of the ways of getting the right people in, but you don't always know. It's like when Tim Buckley left, Tim Baldwin. Why is Tim Baldwin Jr. leaving? And his answer to me, I didn't ask him that question. I asked him about that, and he, went on. You could tell that he said, "Well, time and pressure. We learn more about our players. We know who they truly are." And you could tell he was talking about that once you put time and pressure on someone and how they react, that he thought what they thought they had, they didn't have. So,
right.
But hey, we got to take a break. Kevin Troy Crazy says, is Michael Penix on this team next year? I wonder if you're not going to be in the NFL. Is he transferred? We'll talk about that when we come back as well. Hey, man, like I said, if you're we all need insurance. Our good friends at AAA Insurance take care of you. If you live in the Southwest Indiana area, Southern Illinois, reach out to them. 812-477-9966. That's 812-477-9968. AAA Insurance. We'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration or just... That's another thing I've talked about. This quarterback room next year. First of all, what does Michael Penix do? He has got to be done as a quarterback.
Yeah.
Or go to a backup. He's got to become the backup. He cannot be the featured quarterback anymore.
He won't. If he's going to be the backup, he's going to get in the transfer portal.
What? But he's not going to go.
He'll go to a group of 5 team if he has
Well,
to. I guarantee
other teams won't give a crap about him. They'll take him. They'll say, if he gets hurt, he gets hurt. But
but look at how good this is. Legitimately, look at how good he was in certain systems. If he can find the right fit, he'll be fine. I mean, he may not.
I'll tell you where he could go. Fresno frickin' State.
Bingo. That's what I was thinking. Yes. I mean, I don't know what their quarterback situation is,
if he transfers to Fresno State, that answers every question you need to know.
Well,
it's kind of like
if he goes to Fresno State and plays well, I would say, right?
Yeah, but it reminds me of. I'm looking at something over here, something different. No, we're not on that. Damn it. Who was I thinking of?
Don't know.
I lost it. As soon as I turned and looked at something else, I lost it. ADHD brain.
Michael Penix, group of 5. Kalen DeBoer.
Fresno.
Looking good. Backup. Transfer. None of these words clicking.
Thank you.
Too many of them coming now.
Finally got that coffee I was looking for, Dustin.
There you go.
A lovely wife delivered it to me. She's off work this week from school.
The next 2 years, Indiana is so good at setup at quarterback, though, for the next couple of years.
Don't you think how do I want to phrase this? Maybe we should save this for the conversation, but I would say it probably depends on how Jack Tuttle performs these next couple games.
Good. Yeah, that's a good point.
What?
It probably depends on what Jack Tuttle looks like these next couple games. They might. Well, we'll save this.
I wonder, but I'd like to know how good he would be looking right now if he had been the featured back, and instead of the decision was made for Michael Penix before.
I don't think it matters. I think you got the wrong guy calling plays, personally.
Well,
yeah,
I agree with that, and it's not just that. That's also the quarterback's coach.
Exactly. That's why I don't think
quarterbacks are not developing.
Mm-hmm.
You can't look that good under a coach, and then I've been saying this. I'm not buying this about his knee anymore. What the hell does it have to do about his knee? He's had so many injuries that one injury is not the one that has gotten into his head now.
Oh, here we go. We got 5 seconds.
With First Federal, you can do that.
This segment is brought to you by RE/MAX Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you on this Thursday. Big Ten Media Day is going on up in Indianapolis at Gainbridge Fieldhouse today, starting for basketball. We'll be coming to you live from there tomorrow. We'll have the IU basketball players on. We're going to try to get Coach on. May not have him on during the show, but have to do something with him later possibly. But we'll see what else we can get scattered up. But should be a fun day out there tomorrow. Looking forward to that. They have the women's out there this year as well. So, but welcome back. This segment's brought to you by Cheryl Sizemore RE/MAX. If you're looking for a home in the Indy area, you need Cheryl Sizemore and RE/MAX Realty. She's got over 2 decades of experience. Give her a call. 317-298-0961, 317-298-0961 if you're looking for a home in the Indy area. That's where we need to get you in a home in the Indy area, Dustin.
Get a hold of Cheryl Sizemore.
That's right. I don't want to spend all of our time talking about the Indiana quarterback situation because it is what it is. Jack Tuttle's going to be the guy. He's going to have 2 weeks, so we'll have to wait and see what's going to become of Michael Penix after this season. He'll have another year of eligibility. He will have had his 4th consecutive season-ending injury as a quarterback, he's got no chance to go to the NFL with that record. None. He had to play this, and to me, he had to play this entire season injury-free and next season to get to the NFL. And that's not happening. I don't know that he changes positions. Indiana's quarterbacks room is going to be stocked next year with Jack Tuttle, Donovan McCulley, Josh Hoover, and then there's a kid who's got the knee injury right now that I keep forgetting about. Dexter Williams?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's 4.
Yeah, it's Dexter Williams, just to confirm.
That's 4, not even including Michael Penix Jr.
Yeah. I mean, they're in a good situation, but again, I don't know how much of this is. I mean, you can't lift all the blame off Michael Penix's shoulders.
Here's the point right there that Michael Niehaus is making.
There you go. What quarterback would look good behind the line? What quarterback?
How much blame does Nick Sheridan get because of that? That's not his fault. He's not coaching the line. He can't control how horrible that line is. Now he has to adjust around that. And that's the thing I think he hasn't done, because there are no quick action plays in this offense. Nothing is bang, bang. It is all everything has to develop. And I'm like, dude, you don't have time to let things develop here. So to me, I don't understand why they're not running more jet sweeps, more flare passes, more just straight line passes. They're not attacking the defenses. They're letting them get set. And you don't have the firepower to let a defense be set against you every time. And that's what they do.
They do. They don't do no. I mean, they're basically there's no tempo to the offense. There's no rhyme or reason. I legitimately wonder how much of the first 30 minutes of that Iowa game has altered the play calling, the decision making, the thought process. This isn't just a quarterback situation. The offensive line has played bad. The quarterback has looked bad. The running backs haven't looked great. The wide receivers are dropping passes. The play calling has been questionable. It is from the top down bad. Like, it's not one thing. It's not like, well, if the running back's getting rhythm, then watch out. Or if Michael Penix starts to be more accurate, watch out. This is top to bottom. But it's not watchable. It's that bad. I would rather just watch Indiana's defense play for 60 minutes than see them step on the field offensively. I'm not even being sarcastic.
Was last season Nick Sheridan's Mike Davis year?
Might have been. Because those players knew that system. You had a lot of
trained under that system, under Kalen DeBoer. I mean, he was only here a year, but man, when you do that for a year and that tempo, and that's what they had. They had tempo. They were attacking. You didn't know where the ball was going to be going, what was coming from where, and that's not the case. And right. You don't have Ty Freifogel has not been a downfield threat, but he can't be the only one, and that's been an issue.
Well, they don't have anybody to get the ball out, those quick hitters. They don't have anybody that can pick up chunk yardage. So they don't. I mean, Ty Freifogel is not a factor this year because they can't stretch the field. They can't get defenses. And here's the other thing. We talked about, and we're probably critical of Stevie Scott quite a bit because he couldn't rip off those big runs. But how important is it for him to just be able to power through guys and maybe pick up 4 or 5 yards, be able to pick up a first down with his legs? I don't know that there's an Indiana running back that can do that against these Big Ten defenses. Like Stephen Carr, I think, is a quality back, but with this offensive line, I think Stevie Scott was more power, where if he got hit, he was more likely to be able to fall forward and maybe get you that first down on 3rd and 2 or 4th and 2. Whereas now you have to go to the air because you can't trust the run game. And to me, it's very simplistic for these defenses to game plan for. Like, I think Penn State played a B- game at best and still won 24-0. That's how bad Indiana's offense was.
Yep, absolutely. You mentioned Joe Moorhead earlier, the offensive coordinator at Oregon now. He was hospitalized and missed the Ducks' overtime loss to Stanford on Saturday after needing to undergo emergency surgery. He's still in the Bay Area hospital recovering. The update on him, he remains in the hospital. Moorhead had surgery on Saturday. I'm told his issue was termed non-COVID related, and that's about all that they're talking about there. But lots of games this weekend. Let's see. What do we have? Do we have any Thursday night games?
In the Big Ten?
Coastal Carolina, Arkansas State, baby.
Yeah. The Chanticleers.
Oh, Houston at 7:30 at Tulane.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be a good game.
What should be Houston's 4-1 and Tulane's 1-4.
Yeah, I think I'm going to watch the Coastal Carolina game.
What is today? The 7th?
Yes.
So Cincinnati plays a Friday game against Temple.
Whew.
Let's see. Michigan State travels to Rutgers. Michigan State's a 5.5-point favorite.
Here's what I'm going to say. This is why this game interests me. This is not really football related. Mel Tucker has taken on Keep Chopping, and Greg Schiano was asked about that, and I don't think he's a big fan of Mel Tucker using that mantra.
Keep chopping.
Yeah.
Why is that Greg Schiano?
That's Greg Schiano's. That's been his thing forever since the first time he was at Rutgers. I think 2004 or 5 is when they adopted it. And he doesn't seem too pleased that Mel Tucker is kind of still. So, but I'm just saying
man.
That's going to be a chippy. I think that's going to be a chippy game. I don't expect that to be a
choppy game.
It's going to be a choppy game. Yes. Don't expect that to be like the 51-14 or whatever the final score was against Ohio State. I think this is going to be a tough, fun game.
Well, that's a Saturday noon game. As is Maryland at Ohio State. Both 4-1, but Ohio State's a 3-touchdown favorite. Let's see. Zip through there. Looking for more Big Ten. I should have just pulled down the Big Ten ledger, which I didn't do that, which I can do real quick. Boom.
You also got Penn State.
There's only got 5 games this weekend, like I said. Wisconsin goes to Illinois. Even though Illinois has a better record, I'm going to guess Wisconsin wins that game. They're a 10-point favorite. Who knows how that goes? Now, here's an interesting game. Michigan going to Nebraska, where they're only a 3.5-point favorite.
Yep.
Nebraska's defense is playing really well.
Yep.
This could be a hell of a game.
I think it's going to look eerily similar to the Nebraska-Michigan State game we saw a few weeks ago. But here's the thing to me is everybody's buying Nebraska after a 56-7 win over Northwestern, which they should. But their 3 wins are against a Buffalo team that is under 500, Fordham, which competes at the FCS level, and Northwestern, which is god-awful.
And they lost to Illinois.
They lost to Illinois week 0. I think it's a different team. I'm throwing that one out the window. But the 2 games you lost to Oklahoma.
They look much better defensively,
yes.
But to have offense to go with that,
right?
That's something Indiana would kill for.
They're Oklahoma and Michigan State. These are the games, to me. I think this is a close game. I think Nebraska is going to have a chance to win. But these are the games where Nebraska has had a penalty, a turnover, special teams errors. And so for that reason, I think that this is going to be a one-possession game, and I don't think Nebraska is going to come out on the right side because they haven't been able to do it really at any point in the last 4 or 5 seasons.
Yeah, and the game of the day, of course, the top 5 matchup between Iowa hosting Penn State, 2 undefeated teams in the Big Ten. The Big Ten still has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams. No, that's
4 undefeated.
1, 2, 3, 4 teams that are 5-0.
Yep. Most in college
Michigan
football.
State is one of those. Penn State is one of those. Michigan is one of those. Ohio State 4-1. Maryland 4-1. Take those top teams. That's nuts.
Yep.
2 losses. 1, 2, 3, 4. The top 5 teams in the East, just 2 losses against 10, 14, 15, 19, 20. What was that? 23-2. Nuts. But what do you think of the Iowa-Penn State game?
I think it comes down – this is simplistic, but it's the best answer I have. It comes down to turnovers. Last year, Sean Clifford kept turning the ball over. He has been really good about it this year. His first costly turnover, well, could have been costly, was against Indiana. He's thrown some interceptions at the end of halves and things like that. If Iowa can turn him over, I think that they're going to have a great shot to win. If he hangs onto the ball, I think that Penn State's offense in terms of explosiveness and playmakers is a step above, just a notch above. And you look at the way Penn State's defense plays in the red zone, Iowa may not score many touchdowns. So I like Penn State to win this game, but if they can create 2 turnovers or more, I think they're going to win. I think Iowa could easily win. I flip a quarter on this game because I keep changing my mind.
Well, it's a 2-point. Whichever one I'm looking at is a 2-point. Penn State's getting 2 points, so that is a coin flip. Anything inside of a field goal is a coin flip, basically.
Exactly.
I think Iowa's going to win because
there you go.
They have been turning people over like nuts, and that will be the freaking difference. I mean, they have just been ball hawking, not to pun intended on the Hawks, but they have been the ball hawks, not the Hawkeyes. Yeah. But we'll see, man. Wow. Ross says that 18 former NBA players are charged with federal fraud. We'll have to check that out. Ross Force likes Iowa as well. Exactly what I just said. Yeah, I didn't see that. We're in agreement there. So that's going to take care of it, man. What do you got coming up that people need to know about at Saturday Tradition?
Again, as usual on Friday, I got my 5 bold predictions and my column shooting from the hip. So both of those will be out tomorrow before noon.
Look for it there, man. Give him a follow on Twitter, and please give me one on as well at Jim Coyle ISB. Make sure you go to YouTube and sign up for this. I see that 60% of our viewers are not signed up. So sign up and just hit notifications. It doesn't cost anything. We appreciate the rest of you guys. Thank you so much. Without you, we've got nothing to do. Big thanks to Dustin Schutte, of course, also to Chris Denari, Matt Taylor, and Kyle Neddenriep, who joined us today. We'll be back tomorrow live from the Big Ten Media Day at the Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. Go out and have yourselves a great day, and I will see you on the radio.